last night, I mean, regarding watching John McCain last night, I mean, I just don't understand how conservatives can support John McCain. I mean, after that performance last night, to me, freedom means nothing to John McCain. That's what the impression that I'm left with after seeing him in the second debate last night against Barack Obama. I just don't see what freedom means anything to the man. I just don't know why conservatives, even fearing an Obama presidency and a Democratic Congress, would vote for the man. But if we don't step up and face these decisions and make the tough decisions soon here in the United States regarding reducing government spending and the role of government in our lives, the debt holders of the United States will eventually step up and make the decisions for us. With that, I want to, I don't want to sound too negative. I think that it's a great, we have tremendous opportunities in this nation. We're going through a rough patch economically right now, but this nation has always come out of the rough patches, and we will undoubtedly do so again. We do have a great future, but government does not create prosperity. It can only create the conditions for prosperity to flourish, and it's time that the federal government does that again. Thank you for your, I solicit your votes for November 4th. Thank you. I'm happy to address any questions that you have. Well, I think there ought to be a free-floating currency. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I think it's tough for me. I don't frankly know enough about the gold standard to say, yeah, that's the way we should go. There can be problems, I think, with the gold standard, but at the end of the day, look, libertarians propose serious changes. Some people would say radical changes to society, and that may be true. So I kind of like to get my ducks in a row before I suggest a change. But I will say this, and this was an idea in the Cato Institute Handbook for Congress last time around. I think that the Congress should tell the head of the Federal Reserve, now Ben Bernanke, our target for inflation is between 0 and 2% per year. And you hit that or you're fired, period. Doesn't matter where interest rates go. Doesn't matter what the unemployment rate is.
Do what it takes.
Do what it takes. Now, why 0 to 2%? Because with quality improvement in products, a 0% inflation rate would actually be deflationary. So that's why 0 to 2% per year. But you put it between 0 and 2%, or you're fired. And to me, that's the way to have. I think we ought to have a strong dollar, first of all. I don't think that a weak dollar policy is wise. Recently, it's my understanding the dollar has rallied as of late against foreign currencies. But it certainly is in danger of losing its status as the reserve currency in the United States. And I think that it's certainly in the interest of everyone in this nation, ultimately, I think, to have a strong dollar. And I think that's the way you go about it, is making sure you've got the dampers on inflation. Yes?
I heard you mention the flat tax. I was wondering what your position on the fair tax was.
The fair tax is a possibility, but I think there are some problems with it. In particular, you got to repeal the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to have a fair tax. And I don't think we can wait to institute tax reform. I think at the very least, we ought to get a flat tax in there and then take a serious look at the fair tax. But the flat tax has been instituted and has a history of working in many nations around the world, particularly in Eastern Europe. It has really helped the situation in Eastern Europe post-1989. There is no nation in the world up to this point that has used a retail sales tax as its only source of revenue. And there are people who are economic conservatives, Bruce Bartlett among them, who have said that in their estimation that a fair tax wouldn't work. I think there are objections, they need to be looked at, but my main thing is we can't wait for a long, drawn-out constitutional amendment process to have tax reform in this nation. Yes?
You had
really big libertarian things and social issues. But my problem with the Libertarian Party is I think that part of the reason why Afghanistan became, while we were hit on 9/11, is partially because we let Afghanistan go to the wolves. We just left. We didn't leave any money to help them build infrastructure.
Before 9/11?
Yes, when we were putting money in there for the Afghans to push the Russians
After the
out.
Afghan-Russian war.
No, I don't think that's why 9/11 happened. I mean, certainly that was a briefing, but I don't think that's why it happened.
Not why it happened, but it was part of the cause, because when we just left it there, Afghanistan stayed poor. When Osama bin Laden left the Sudan and went back to Afghanistan, I mean, if we'd have helped prop Afghanistan up before that, we could have had a role in keeping it going.
Well, maybe that's true, but then the same thing could be said in the past of other nations or other nations in the future. I mean, hindsight is 20/20, and I'm not sure I would have gone along with that anyway. I mean, unfortunately there were ways I think 9/11 could have been stopped, but the intelligence agencies had problems, and so I think a few people here in the United States saw what might happen, but couldn't convince the right people that what they were envisioning was actually going to happen. I mean, I didn't believe it when it happened, but of course I don't work at the CIA or the FBI, and I guess don't read Tom Clancy novels where somebody hijacks a plane and flies it into the U.S. Capitol. But in any case, there may be certain instances where, in hindsight, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but there may be certain instances where some sort of intervention might be appropriate, but I think it's far outweighed by those instances where it's not appropriate, and I think overall it makes it a very unwise policy. I don't see how ahead of time you can tell. So I don't think, probably our problem was that we shouldn't have gotten involved in Afghanistan in the first place back in the late 70s. Probably they would have defeated the Russians anyway. So that may be the root of where we went wrong. Just thinking that the Soviet Union was possibly invincible unless we intervened.
I was just going to add on to what you said. There's a man that spent 8 years in Dalton Force that just wrote a book and was being interviewed on TV the other day, but he was completely disguised, and he was sent to Afghanistan right after 9/11. They wore local clothing. They were all disguised. They had a whole unit there. They found Osama bin Laden. They blew it at Tora Bora. But they didn't blow it because he had him literally in the sights, and he was not given the authorization to go ahead. And he got out of Delta Force now, and he's written a book about it. It just came out. And he had, in the interview, he had a complete scale model of Tora Bora, exactly where they had gone, where they had tracked him to, and everything like that. And there was this like mountain pass over the mountains that went into over into Pakistan. And it's always been my contention that the idea was to go to Afghanistan with a force and look for Osama bin Laden forever, because of Musharraf in Pakistan, because he was quite treading on flaky ground. They got nukes, they got Islamic terrorists there, they've got Indian and Kashmir on their border and all that. And should anything have really started in Pakistan with Musharraf or whatever, we'd have had a force there to go in and like sort of ice the place down, right? So we have a pretext to be there, like right next door, while we're running around in that pile of rocks called Afghanistan, allegedly looking for Al-Qaeda. So,